Gemara. We are up to Daf Samach Ches Amud Aleph, Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Chukas. The two dots. We are up to here. So we said that the person, the Isha Iti, the person who's taking that goat and tossing it off the cliff, his clothes become tummy. We had an argument as to exactly precisely the time becomes tummy. Is it as soon as he leaves the base of Mikdash, and so on? And now we're talking about not the Ishiki taking the Israel. Now we're talking about we take the animal itself and we burn it outside of the three camps. So if we say that person who does the burning, his clothes become tummy. Is it as soon as he takes it out of the base of Mikdash, or Chazab Shimon only when he lights the fire and most of the animal gets burnt? Says the Gemara, when we learned, it says in Pasik that this parachatas and this irachatas, you should take it outside of the camp. It says a singular camp. No, there are three camps. We have machne Shechina, machne Leviyah, machne Yisrael. You have the base of Mikdash, you have the courtyards, and then you have Yerushalayim. So we're going to soon see that you have to actually take it out of the three camps, like the Paraduma, and burn it all the way outside of Yerushalayim. However, in the pasuk itself, it just says a single mechutz lamachne, out of the one camp. So and what you do, the sulfur and burn it in fire. When it comes to other cases, you say it has to be outside of the three camps. When it comes to, for example, if the entire community committed an aveda and have to bring a chatlas there, it gets burnt outside of the three camps. And here, you only give them one camp. Over there, it's the same thing. Here, it's the same thing as over there. We learn from each other that over here also is outside of three camps. So how come the pasuk says only chutz lamachne singular? Why does it say out of the single camp when in fact it's out of the three camps? Let me tell you. Even there's something happens as soon as you leave the first camp. As soon as you leave the base of Mikdash, something already happens. What's that? Even sheyotza chutz lechaymer lemachne. As soon as you go out of the machne, as soon as you go outside of the courtyard, achas, just one is metame v'gadim. It's already metame clothes. Losing of a hosam and Allah and haritakin over there. That's outside of three camps as well. Tanya, we learn. It says in the pasuk, "It's hoitzi is kol apar." You should take out the entire part outside of the camp to a clean place where you're going to pour out the ashes, and that's where you burn it. It says, "You call upon chutz." Chutz is from how do you know over there it's outside three camps? Ato im chutz shows machne. You say it's outside three camps. Oh, yeah, the chutz machne is only outside one camp. It says in the pasuk there as well. El chutz machne. Oh, kishoim bepara eda. When it says by the communal carbon, when they all make a mistake, there it says el chutz machne. There it's like this: you should take out the part outside the camp and burn it just like you burned the first parachatas. So once you know already you burn it like the first parachatas, and we know by the parachatas you take it outside of the camp. Why do you have to mention again outside the camp? That tells us outside of a second camp. Add another camp to it. It's unnecessary. It says already in pasuk the sort of oisei kasha sort of as a paradisha, and you should burn it like you burned the first part. So why is it mechutz lamachne? So you have to add an additional camp. So it's not only out of the inner camp, but also out of the outer camp. But it's still, what about the third camp outside of Yerushalayim itself? But it says again that he takes off his clothes and other clothes and takes out the ashes. And where does he take out the ashes to? He takes out the ashes, and that's not necessary. We already said that you take that par and you burn it outside the camp where you put out the deshen. So we already know the deshen is outside the machne. Why do you have to tell him to take the deshen outside the machne? That adds a third camp. That's how you know in all three places you take it out of three camps. It says El Shafach HaDeshen, you should pour it out. You should burn it where you pour out the deshen. That comes teach you 10 loy machne shlishi. So that's how we know the three camps by Yom Kippur and by the Para Eda. That's how you know that you burn them outside. When you burn them outside the base of Mikdash, you burn them outside of the three camps. It means totally outside of Yerushalayim. It's like Exeter Shabbat, but each one adds another element to it.
How do you know which is the starting point of Exeter Shabbat and which is the second, which is the third?
Good question. The Rishonim over here already have a problem as well. That if it's a hekish, more hekish than anything else, we have a rule that something you learn from hekish cannot teach other things by hekish. But if this is more at the moment, it's more or less like Exeter Shabbat. We learn things from each other. Rab Shimon, what does he do? Shimon said that you don't become tummy until you go outside of the three camps and you burn the actual par. So what does he do with all these extra machnes? The boiler he needs it like a Tanya. We learned the blazer. I can't hear it says mechutz lamachne. But Nemal Halan says by paradum mechutz lamachne. It says over there also by paradum mechutz lamachne in this week's parsha. Just like over here, it's outside Yom Kippur. It's outside the three camps. So to paradum, it's outside the three camps. So we make an Shava, and that's how you know the paradum is outside the three camps. Oh, we know that paradum is chutz lamachne, single. How do you take it outside Yerushalayim as well? And then we learn Yom Kippur from paradum. What is that? Ma'alahalon ben mizrachish Yerushalayim. It says there by Pesach al Moed by the paradum it has to be facing Yerushalayim. Avkan over here too, the mizrachish Yerushalayim. Over here too, you have to be facing the mizrach of Yerushalayim. It says no, you got to face the base of Mikdash, and the entrance to the base of Mikdash is on the east side. So you have to face the entrance. You have to be facing the base. You're west of Yerushalayim.
That's what I'm asking. No,
you're west and you're facing. You're east facing west. That's right. Which means you're facing west. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And they ask over here, this is something that by paraduma you learn from a hekish, and how can you learn other things? And they start talking about that paraduma is actually not a carbon. It's not kachim. Only by kachim you say that if you learn something from a hekish, you cannot teach other things in the hekish. Paraduma is, we had a machlekes whether it's better kabayis or whether it's considered carbon. So we're in between. The question is where does it fit in? So they will hold here. It's not really a carbon. Chulin ligabe karbons.
The reason that you can't learn from one hekish to another by kachim is that because it's
No. Once you learn something from a hekish, it's not strong enough to have another halach altogether. But Rabbanan and Rabbanan, since they're using the machna, what do they love paratum and all that? What to do it? Tanya, we learned Heichen this roughing. Where do they get burned? Which side of Shalayim? Let's find Shalayim. They hold this taka that where do you do this? You don't learn from paraduma. They hold they don't learn from paraduma. And therefore, where taka do you burn the things that we learn over here by your kip and all that? Not where you burn the paraduma on the what do you call it? On the east side of the base of Mikdash facing west, but let's find Yerushalayim on the north side of Yerushalayim, because all the activities like the shchita of the chatas is done on the north side of base of Mikdash. So the burning of the chatas, they go more due north. And outside Yerushalayim.
So that's what the Siras also would have to go to. Also, Siras also something.
That's not burned or anything else. That's something different. That's what that cliff is.
Right. No. I'm saying, according to these people, said these things have been softened. I would still agree.
Everyone's trying to come. The Chacham. This is everyone except for Shimon, who uses it to learn from Paraduma that everything gets burnt with the Paraduma gets burnt. On the west side, they say no, it gets burnt on the north side, just like the shchit is on the north side. So too here, because they don't have any extra words for Gzeira Shalom. Rabbi Yezir says Abeis Hadeshan is rough. Rabbi Yezir says when you're going to burn these paras, first you have to make sure that you brought the deshen there, and once you have the deshen there, the ashes from the there, then you burn the carbon there. That's what he holds. Because the pasuk says Shloich Hadesh. No, it's a new union. He says, "What says the pasuk? You should take it to El Shavach Hadeshen, where you poured out the deshen." So he says that the deshen has to be poured out first, and then you shech then you burn these chatois. Omar of a man tan who's the one who argues you don't need to put the deshen first. It can be learned. It says in pasuk Shavach Hadeshen that you should burn it where you have a shafal chadeshen, where you pour down the deshen, shehei l'shem deshen, shehei l'shem deshen. In other words, that this time, which is Rabbi Yossi holds, that you already have the ashes there, and so on and so forth. And then he says it should turn into deshen. But yeah, nothing to do with deshen ashes. Mekayim deshen means it's a slope. Yeah, that's all we need is a slope. In other words, if you put ashes there, it'll roll down. So that's what Rabbi says. Somebody argues on Rabbi Yossi. Amalei Abaye, who said, maybe he agrees you have to have deshen there. He's saying in addition to having deshen there, it has to be a makom that is a slope. But not that he's excluding, he's arguing Rabbi Yossi whether you need the ashes there first or not. So therefore, no doubt there's any argument whatsoever. And maybe that first you should place the ashes there, and so on. Says he went further. Third, we learn. Says the pasuk. Whoever burns them should wash clothes and his tummy. Then he can rejoin. The one who burns the actual animals, the chatas and all that, the part of chatas, they're the ones who have become tummy, right? Because there's a saidiv. However, but not the one who lights the fire. In other words, Reb Shimon holds that, remember, according to everybody else, as soon as you start walking, you already become tamei. That's not what we're talking about. This is Reb Shimon who says, when do you become tamei? Only when you lit most of the fire. So according to Reb Shimon, it's only the person who actually was misase with the animal itself, not the one who lit the fire. Because lighting the fire doesn't make it tamei yet, because you're not working with animal. Another one who organizes the wood and the fire. The Eza Hasaidiv, who's the burners, for the one who's tossing the animal around to make sure it burns well. Yochol af b'shanasa eifim metamin, even after turning to ashes, if he touches and moves things around, it should become tamei. Become gadol tamei, and the pasuk oisam that they should become tamei. It's about side of oisam. What do you mean oisam? Oisam metam begodim. Only if the animal itself is metam begodim. Once it turns to ashes, it's like a polim chadashos. It's no longer metame the clothes. Rabbi Elazar of Shimon says hapar metame, that only while it's intact as a full par is it metame the person who's working with it. Aber nitze chabasa melted ain't a metame begodim, no longer metame. My benaya. What's the chilling where we say eifel unmelted? Ikbenaya the shavi charoicha. What happens if you singed it, you burnt it completely? It's like the basa fell apart, but there's no ashes yet. So according to Tanakama, he's still metame. According to Rabbi Elazar Shimon, it's not metame anymore. Next mission.
We're talking about
burnt it to ashes.
No. They call it decomposing. They call decomposing.
Oh, okay. It falls apart. Could be, but even Surasa you didn't put it on the fire at all. No. Surasa is natural.
Yeah, but here I'm saying
just on the fire. Here it must be in a way that's very visible.
Again, decomposing. Yeah,
but not on the fire. On the fire, Nitzach is much more than just yeah. Even Surah is how do you tell?
So what happens if you straight away and it started decomposing, and you didn't do anything, so it's already not time. It could be.
But it has to be neat and is much more than what we say by Uyibut Surah. It has to fall apart. The Kohen Gadol said to the Kohen Gadol, they told him the Kohen Gadol now had to stop his activities and wait, like burning the thing on the Mizbeach and all that, until he was told that this ear was taken care of. So how did he know? The Sawyer king arrived at the midbar. He did a few things. He took out from the animal the innards and all that, but that isn't really avoida. You cannot do avoida until this avoida is taken care of. So he has to wait now. We'll see till when. So there's a machlekes. Is it that's half sukkah? Where do you think half sukkah comes from? So that's why some shuls have a 3-hour of sukkah, and some shuls have half an hour of sukkah, depending. No, depending, it has to be as soon as he gets to the midbar or when he has to get to the tzuk, to Makam Matzuk. To walk 12 kilometers and follow the cheshbon of the Gemara, 18 minutes is a meal. Follow that opinion, 18 minutes is a meal. So you're talking about 2 times 12, right? So you're talking about a good 2.5, 3-hour break over here. And then Kippur.
How long does it take to walk from the 12 kilometers to Doncaster? 12 kilometers. It's a few hours.
Exactly. A few hours. A long half sucker. But if you follow Rabbi Yehuda, it says as soon as you get to the middle, which is only 3 kilometers, so 3 kilometers are chesed is 54 minutes. Those are the shul that have short half suckers. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah, that the goat arrived in the midbar, so he can start doing his next avodah. That's when he has to go do he has to go be makter the chaylev or the chatzis on that. That's the next avodah. How did he know she gets oil midbar? How would he know? As the Gemara, as a Mishnah, did koyes are you in the Rabbi Tanuda said the koyes means they put a boulder. Boulders along the way. There were boulders along the way, and every so often somebody would be standing on top of the boulder with flags in their hand. So there was the last guy who stood next to them by the, where we looked here yesterday, the mayor said only a kilometer away, was that he walked. It could be somewhere there before Yom Kippur, even closer. But he stood on a boulder, had a flag, and then the next guy on the next boulder had a flag, and they all raised the flags. But that's how they knew the soil arrived at the midbar. Rashi said the kois is not the boulders. Rashi says basically are people like spies, or what do you call them, surveyors, or and their job is to see what's going on and pass the message on.
It's a document didn't get involved under here, huh?
Is there anything here that they objected to? That they, according to their reading of the Torah,
exactly what he said. Yeah.
Maybe they didn't object to it.
Oh, but much better simon. That Yerushalayim, Matilda's place called Beis Chedudai, which is the beginning of the wilderness, which is and that's where you're ready for Mekayim v'Sholach as a sort of midbar. Remember, it's not Ma'akiv throwing off the tzuk and all that. So he says Shleish is milin. So the whole thing is that this is the taste of walks for the meal. I think this is the second place. Makes sense. I'm sorry. This is what you did. Somebody escorted the guy, walked the meal. Once see how fast the guy walks. They walk with him one meal. We're going to assume that the second and third meal just as quick as the first meal. So you walk with him a meal, the chayzin meal, then he comes back a meal. So meal, the other guy continued walking. So he's already 2 meals outside of the base of Mikdash, and then you wait the time it takes. Now you already know how long it takes. So you wait the time it takes to walk a third meal. We're showing you the meal. The yoidin, they know shekias are the midbar. They can rest assured that he arrived in the midbar. And then he went and did his job.
It's interesting. If you don't ever watch, you can accurately use it. In other words, I can say, well, it took me a meal.
They knew the sun. They knew the sun. It was a cloudy day. It messed everything up.
We had to really watch the sun carefully to distinguish positions.
If you live your life that way, everything is around the sun. You learn the angle of the sun.
Society, people are in touch with nature around.
Yeah. Exactly. We're spoiled today. Everything is done for us. But Rabbi Shmuel says, they had another simon altogether. They had another simon altogether. Remember, we learned in the early days, they used to have something tied around the door outside. We had 2 opinions whether it was an outer door or the inner door, but they had a simon. So the Kohen Gadol, right away, knew didn't need any help from anybody. Okay, but this is obviously not arguing. He's talking about the early days, and the Chacham is talking about later life when this simon stopped. Remember, people were very depressed, and the Chacham decided, you know what, Yom Kippur, you have to be b'simcha. So we removed this telltale sign that nobody should know. Well,
that would only work until
the message comes back.
Happens.
No, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Shimon agree, we don't have to wait till it's tzuk. We can wait even. Remember,
But the thing wouldn't change colors.
We learned yesterday it changed colors on the door, and the reason why we made it go around the horn because he might say, it's all done already. What have to go to them for?
Isn't there 2 things?
Well, we said before that it's not ma'akiv. If it's not ma'akiv, that means it's the kapara. Even the vidu is not ma'akiv. Only that's ma'akiv is the goydel, because the Kohen Gadol is then wearing his white clothes. Everything after that is not ma'akiv. So even the goydel is not ma'akiv. So even even the vidu is not ma'akiv. And the thing, when exactly is the kapara? What is it that's a kapara? Is it the throwing off the cliff? Is the goydel the kapara? Is that ready? As soon as you're ready and you nominate an animal, is it the moment you said exactly shaluach? Is it after it reaches the midbar? You see right here.
Whichever one of those you said, what is the kapara? But to know that there's been a kapara, you've got to see this thing change in color.
Yeah, and that thing changes color when the kapara happens.
Okay. But here it seems to indicate that the sound was according to this reaching the midbar and the kapara at the same time.
Either the midbar or the tzuk. These are different opinions. So he holds Bishmos clearly. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda. As soon as it came to the midbar, forget about the tzuk. The inyan of the tzuk is whatever the inyan is. We learned yesterday. It's exedehi. Don't ask any questions.
So
like Rashi says in the chukas, exedehi.
So the Kohen can continue with the other word.
It's not back.
No, once he has a sign that the
the Kohen had to wait a certain period of time.
You know that the mitzvah was done.
Right.
The mitzvah of whatever the mitzvah is. According to Yehuda, as soon as you reach the midbar, you already did the mitzvah.
Yeah, but the Kohen is to know. The Kohen is to know when you reach the midbar.
Yeah, that's how we see where the color changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So even though they haven't thrown the vote,
I understand.
he continues his way.
Right.
So in other words, once there's a sign whether it's red or white, he knows it can continue.
Because the pasuk says v'sholach is a by midbar. That's it. And he could then do his avodah. Because it said the part where Midbar, then it says Chayla V'chatas Yakti and so on. So it sounds like it has when it gets to the Midbar. So the Tanakh says it has to get to the Tzuk. And the Yehuda says no, the beginning of the Midbar. And the Shmuel said the same thing, the beginning of Midbar. Shmuel says Im Yechatei Gashon and Kashel Gabinim. Amar Abaye.
Does that guy does he know that the thing's gone red or gone white?
He doesn't know.
So I'm saying to him, he might get a.
We don't want him to know, because then he won't bother thinking.
If I follow, it's already done. What do I need to do?
Or it's already happened. Either way, you think, what's the point? It's done.
It's like you should the guys who want to watch a replay of a football match, so they make sure not to know what the scores are, because only find out as they watch it.
Amar Abaye. Some people, I know some people that will never read a mystery book. They first read the last chapter, then they start the book.
That's like we look at Shabbos and Chulish. You look at the Pesach at the end, and
if you like it, you go through it.
You read that comments to see if you're going to like it. And then once you decide that you're going to like it based on those comments, you read the last page. From
here we know that Beis Cheduda, this place that he nominated, is actually the beginning of the Midbar. So we need three meal outside of Yerushalayim is the beginning of the Midbar. Clear. As soon as it hits the Midbar, the mitzvah was done. We're moving on. Next Mishnah, we continue. It's just amazing how the Masechta is so focused. And, no distractions, no digressions, sticking to the point there. No, that's the Gemara, not the Mishnah. Yeah, to bring the point. And we learn things from there. Well, the Kohen Gadol now has to read a parsha. Rashi says he learns from Maluyim, everybody argues with him. But anyway, the Kohen Gadol now comes to read. He reads now, if he wants. Now, the reading of the parsha is not really part of the Avodah, but if he wants to read it with wearing the white clothes that he's already wearing, he's allowed to read it. As we're going to discuss, that he's allowed to have Hana from it, and therefore he can read the Torah as well. And if he
Rashi says it's ma'akev. Does that mean it's not part of the Avodah?
What's ma'akev?
Rashi says he comes to read the parsha.
No, but wearing the white clothes is not ma'akev.
So
wear white clothes, yeah.
So this is just a question. At what stage? There's a fixed amount of times you have to change your clothes, or is this an extra time and therefore he has to go?
He's definitely not allowed to put on his gold clothes to cover this, because that's the mamish for avodah. Right. And even though this is not an avodah, even though it's part of the ritual that the Kohen do, but if he wants to continue wearing the white clothes, he can. What's choice? What's alternative? Or if he wants, he wears some kind of a long beged that is of his own, love and mishalai, a white of his own. He doesn't have to wear any of the big kohen because it's not an avodah. Chazan HaKnesses, interesting in history, when the Chazan HaKnesses was the Shamish, as Ashi says clearly, Chazan Shamish became the Chazan. Chazan is from the word they say from sea. His job is to oversee, to see what has to be done for the, like Bedek Habayis, the show. So how did that change to the Chazan, the Shlich Tzibur? Even though the famous Yiddish word, Chazan is Chazon and Zayin Aronim.
Not everybody needs to read so well. And the fellow who looked after the shul, who got the job of looking after it, was the guy who could read.
No, actually, it's not the Shamish either. Shamish never was a Talmud Chacham. It was the next guy. And the reason why the Chazan, the reason why they say Chazon and Zayin Aronim is it's not Stam a letz, is because the Heichel HaTshuva is right next to the Heichel HaNagina. And they're such masters that they can go into the Heichel HaNagina and get that special thing. Why can't you walk next door to the Heichel HaTshuva and do what you have to do? We don't have a chush in either one. If you're already there, make a detour. That's what he says. So the Chazan HaKnesses, the Shamish, Neutel Sefer Torah, takes Sefer Torah, the Neus Neutel Rosh HaKnesses, and gives it to the Rosh HaKnesses, what we call today a Gabbai. The Gabbai's job is, look at Rashi says, the job of Rosh HaKnesses. Al Piv on him, Piv based on whatever he decides, Nechtochin Tzorchei HaKnesses. Everything, me maftir, me Poidas Oshma, who's going to have Teda, who's going to be the Chazan, me Oiva Lifnei Teva. So me Oiva Lifnei Teva is other parts of davening, and the Kodesh Shema we had in more brachas is Poidas Shema. It's interesting. But you look at Rashi before Beis HaKnesses, even though it doesn't mention the Mishnah, Rashi says, "Hayasamuch la'azoret beharabayis." On the harabayis, right outside the Beis Mikdash, there's a shul. Because there's a big debate. When was the first shul? When did the shul start? And Rashi says over here, big debate. In Gemara Sukkah, we'll see in the Gemara Sukkah in the Achreinim. And here it says that there was a shul outside the base of Mikdash on the Harabais, somewhere on the Harabais. Look in your map there. Where was the shul? So it's not inside the base of Mikdash, not in Azora. So right here, some Mukhla Azora Harabais.
Yeah, when you say Azor, when he means Azor, it doesn't mean
usually.
Azor, which is on the other side of the Sharnik.
No, usually it means as Nashim, it's outside. You have to see.
Because normally when we say Azor, we mean on the other side of Sharnik.
You mean what, as Yisrael, as a kind?
Yeah, that's we understand.
Yeah, not here. I think here means outside as Nashim, the big area, the lower part of the mountain.
Say the Rochme and Shiva trying to knock, it's because they used to have the Vatikasias out in the fields.
Sunday, yeah.
And the people should go alone. I mean, they had Vatikasias back then. It was,
But what was that? That could have been in the late second Meters, you don't know.
If you already had from early by Shen, you already knew of what you call of Shmones and Tefillah B'Tzibur in these things. Right?
I know this wasn't by decision. I know that we didn't talk about this by decision as well. Maybe yeah, maybe no. I'm just saying there's a big debate when the first shul started. That was even by decision, maybe the people who didn't make it to the base of English already started davening something and so on.
So did they have shuls in Bochel and Golas Bochel, or did they have shuls in Golas Bochel?
We did. We learned. Rav said, Rav.
No, I'm saying
they built. He said they took the stones from the base of English and built.
That's by Shem.
That was by Shem.
So I'm saying in the time of the Golas Nebuchadnezzar.
Maybe they
70 years the shuls didn't have
I don't know.
shuls.
Maybe they did. Okay. Anyway.
an average Jew made at least I read wrong. It was a big trip. If you lived up in the north or something, it was 4 days.
So the question is, what sort of avodas Hashem did you do in Tzich between going to Beis Hamikdash?
Okay, let's continue. So Reish HaKnesses, I think Reish HaKnesses sounds better than a Gabbai. They should put back that name. Reish HaKnesses, the head of the whole shul. No, he's even greater than the Rav. Yeah. Reish HaKnesses is, by the way, there's a Shulchan Aruch, a Siman on Hay, I think, at the very end. It talks about if a shul only has limited funds and you have to either hire a Rav or a Chazan. What should you hire? And believe it or not, the Shulchan Aruch says a Chazan. A Chazan who can bring you to Shemayim and teach him how to daven is more important than a Rav who can daven. Okay. Anyway, to Reish HaKnesses who's not the Rav, this is the Gabbai. Nois and the Gan, he gives it to the Gan. This Gan is a deputy who's there waiting, a Kohen Gadol waiting. But Gan Nois Kohen Gadol, he's back to the Kohen Gadol. Why do the whole exercise? To give cover to the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol the Kohen Gadol standing. I mean, till now he was sitting. The fact that till now he was sitting, and now he's sitting in the base of Midrash tells you that this all took place outside in the Azara. The Kohen, and what does he read? He reads Achrei Mois. He reads Achrei Mois, and he reads Va'ach Ba'asam. And even though there's a little bit of a break between, which is in Parshas Emor, nevertheless, he rolls Sefer Torah because there's a very short distance between the two, and he puts it in his bosom. Or I don't know how they did the Sefer Torah in those days that they were able to. When I was in Caracas, somebody gave us a present, a Sefer Torah that was saved during World War II. So one of the partisans took it with him. It was a Sefer Torah made out of goat skin or deer skin, and it was so light. It was so light and it was small. You could read the whole Sefer Torah. That's the only time we understood what it means. You get it in your bosom, but it's really light, small. Says the Mishnah further. And he says, he's about to read Bahart as well, because we don't want to do Galil again, but it's very, very far past Pinchas. And because covered at Tzibur, you're not allowed to do Galil in front of a Tzibur. And we don't want you to take out another Sefer Torah, because then people will think that the first Sefer Torah is possible. So he said the rest Bahart. So he tells him, I want you to know there's more to the Torah than what I'm going to say now is also from the Torah. Don't think that I'm making this up. He reads Al-Peh, he makes on his 8 brachas. He makes the bracha b'chad Torah, he says it's same. And he says Moedim, where he says in the Mechayla, I'm saying Kippurim Hazeh, that and he davens on the base of Mikdash. Rashi says he finishes the bracha Baruch Shebacha b'Mikdash, and while Yisrael b'fnei Atzma, and he davens for Yidden separately. While Yishlayim b'fnei Atzma, Yishlayim separately. While Hakoyanim b'fnei Atzma, and he davens separately, and he finishes the bracha. Says Rashi Baruch Shebacha b'Zar Shel Aaron. And the same thing he says by Yisrael. Says if Al Yisrael, Baal Shalat Tefillah, and then the rest of the davening, will say what that is. If you see Kohen Gadol while he's reading, it's impossible to see the Kohen Gadol while he's reading and then to see the Pad V'Soya Hanis Sofik, because that took place far away. Or if you position yourself, people want to see everything. You should know. It's giving you an alert. If you're going to see this activity, you're not going to see that. See that, you're not going to see this. But because it's outside of Shalayim, not because they're not allowed to. Chayku is very far away. And they both took place mamish at the same time. There was no time to run from one place to another place. Because the Kohen Gadol didn't go out to burn outside the base of Mikdash. The Kohen Gadol was reading. What activity do you want to see? What's more important? Big Tony, each his love and Mishlei can use his own long white shirt. It's clear that Kriya reading the Tate is not an avoid. Tony, yet it says him, but he wants to wear his big day lava. Shamat min over here now. Big day kahuna nitnu lahanas ben. We know we really learned we can't expect them the second they finish the take it off. But here we're going a step further. Not only doesn't have to take it off straight away, you can do other things with it as well. So the Monorai, because it's machlekes. So the Monorai deal no shiny kriya tzorech avodah. Even though it's not avodah in its own right, it's tzorech avodah. It's part of the process of avodah because it's ma'akev. You can't go to the next step till you do this. So mele it's tzorech avodah. What's the story? The boy, we have a question. Big dekuna. Need to learn as many like need to learn as many. Let have enjoy from or not. So coming here, it says in the process. It says in the Brisa that they did not sleep wearing the big Kodesh. Sounds like but during the day when they were up, they can do whatever they want in big Kodesh. Sheinu deloy. You want to eat, for example, they can eat. That's what it sounds like. So you want to have a no for big Kodesh. And from our mission, we see the same thing. So you want to know? When a Kohen eats, it's part of the Avodah. So there's no raya in that. Yeah, and in fact, we had Rashi in Psachim of says that the Yisraelim have a mitzvah also to eat. They're part of the kapara as well. The slach has a whole slach on that. So the Gemara says, okay, I'll make another deal. Sheina who deloy, they cannot sleep in it. Or hiluchim mahalchi, they want to go for a spatzir, they can inside the base of Mikdash around Azorah. They will love not know that either. Maybe you're not allowed to have a no, you're not allowed to go for spatzir either. So why do we stress Sheina? But the hiluchim nami, you're not allowed to go for a walk either. The seifa itzichalei. The chiddush here is, why does it say sleeping is you shouldn't? To tell you, but what you are allowed to do is poistin, you're allowed to take your clothes off, umekapling and fold them up, umenichin tachas Hashem, use them as a pillow. That you are allowed to do. Don't sleep in it, but you can lie down, not chapadrema, but lie down just to relax. And the Gemara will continue right tomorrow that it does not in itself prove that you're allowed to have hando from the clothes. I always saw that, and I always thought that was to be machabed godim, and they shouldn't sleep in it. They should fold it up nicely and put it down. But it's possible to use it as a pillow. Exactly.
So you
Thanks. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
So for Kutcha,
it was like tomorrow night 7 o'clock.